Hi, hello, and welcome to the lounge on this wonderful Sunday evening. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying that shift into fall. I don't know about you, but that shift from summer to fall is always a tough one on the energy, isn't it? Going from the sun and a lot of different energy to the fall energy. And I always tell people take it slow because so much changes within that energy, and do things that are really nurturing to your mind, body, and soul. Although I preach that to you, not so good at doing it myself, but I am trying. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm Intuitive Channel Transformational Guide, Marisa, Liza, Pell. We are here every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcasting live to both YouTube and Facebook. And, if you are new, I would love for you to subscribe and hit the notification bell on your YouTube so that you can interact with us as we go live every week. And we do topics, transformation, intuition, sometimes even NDEs, getting to break your patterns, stepping toward your purpose. And each season does have its theme. And our theme for this season is stepping into alignment, stepping into your purpose, breaking your patterns, and moving through to a life of fulfillment that you feel you are designing and creating the lifestyle that you really want to be living. So for me, that's slowing down and not be on the go roller coaster all the time. And really a big theme for the fall and where we're at with consciousness right now is presence and being present with ourselves, mainly being present with our loved ones, our children, the world, people around us, and going deeper into connections, because the world is kind of like going so fast. Time is going so fast. And yet everybody wants to slow down and they're like, oh, time's just, that's the one thing I just got to say, put it out there. I have a pet peeve when people say things like, oh, this year just flew by. Or, oh, they grow up so fast, don't they? I blinked and the person just grew up so fast. Well, yes, if you're in a certain state of going quickly and moving fast and not being present, being disconnected from yourself, your intuition, and the universe, these things are going to happen. However, you're going to say to me, Marisa, you're full of it. Can you slow down time? You can. I've done it. Now, am I able to hold on to it every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? No, but I've done it. And I've gotten those days where I feel completely full, completely fulfilled, felt like I was present, and said, you know what? This day felt like it's so long. Like I felt like I'm full from the day. Like I didn't rush through the day. I didn't look at the calendar and it's a month later and I woke up out of a scattered state. Now, for those of you that do follow me, oh, yes, we are very active on Facebook, by the way. So make sure that you like me on Facebook as well. But for those of you that follow me, my passion is tuning into your own intuition, right? Because for 25 years, I've helped people have come to me to tap into my intuition for their life purpose. But now I want to teach people how to do it for themselves, empower them to tap into their own inner wisdom. But if you're very connected and not present, it's impossible to do that. And there's a special link in there. And that's with utilizing our nervous system response, or learning skills to ground and balance so that we could turn up that broadcast on our intuition and manifest. So I don't believe any of those things. And this is just me and my own method and what I teach now. I don't believe you could just learn intuition and that's all you have to do, because people that are naturally intuitively gifted are more likely not grounded and not present. So they might have gifts for other people, but for themselves, it seems to kind of fall away. So today I'm bringing something near and dear to my heart, something that I teach in my 12-month mentorship program, the Ascend and Align Accelerator, and I bring people through, is the base of my own healing, my own start to regulating my own body and coming back home to myself, which is Polyvagal Theory, and looking at the vagus nerve and regulating the biology of the body so that the mind, body, and spirit could ascend, and so that we could really tap into our home our inner wisdom, and know exactly what path we're supposed to be on and the purpose that we're really meant to fulfill. So that's the foundation of my training. And as I've talked to a lot of people about this in my journey and bringing people on, there's not a lot of people that talk about using these methods with kids, intuitive, highly sensitive children, where it's like, do we really think that we could just go about scattered and frantic and our kids aren't going to feel that sense of energy? And even if we're not yelling and screaming, they're not going to pick up on the energy that's within our body. When kids are very, very little, before they can even talk, they're going to absorb the energy and they're looking to us to help regulate their systems, right? Because they don't have the skills to do it themselves. So then what happens with a parent that is anxious and going around dysregulated and wondering why their child is having issues with being present or issues at school or issues with anxiety or issues with depression, and sending them, outsourcing them to someone to talk to, like a therapist, to kind of help them, when really the medicine is within you, if this is you, to co-regulate with your child so that they can feel it. And that is the medicine. And once they feel you calm, it's not like, oh, I just need to be present, right? It's, I need to be present and regulated so that my child could feel that and then regulate on their own. So today's guest, it's going to be magical. I'm bringing on a woman that I met in one of my other groups I belong to, and she's just so interesting. Her name is Dani Oxer. She's a PhD, biologist, and author, and she wrote a book on polyvagal theory for kids, bringing less stress into your children's lives. I'm so excited to bring her on. I want to just read a little bit about her first. So Dani Oxer is a biologist with over a decade experience in scientific research. She has a PhD degree in immunology, I'm probably not saying this right. Immunology. I know I'm not saying that right, from the University of San Paolo in Brazil, and was a postdoctoral fellow at McGill University. In 2017, she transitioned to the private sector, where she employed her scientific background to design and administer stress management programs. She currently lives in Montreal, Canada. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome to the show. Make sure you welcome her in the comments and give her a warm welcome to Dani Oxer. So happy to have her here. Hi, Dani.
Hi, thank you so much for the nice introduction. And you said immunology very well. So
I did. I feel like I didn't like perfect. Stress the.
No, it was perfect.
Immunology.
I have an accent. So I have an accent and I say immunology, and it's fine. I think it was good.
Okay. Well, I'm happy. I'm just so excited that we're bringing this to the public, because I think it's like too many people are like, oh, they're so busy with their jobs, busy running around. Why are my kids acting up? I'm not yelling or screaming at the house, but inside I'm yelling and screaming in my own body, right? Frantic, running around, always going, always doing. And yet we think that doesn't affect our children. So we think, oh, now they're having mental health issues. Now they got to go see a therapist, where they're going to do talk therapy, which, as we know from doing somatic work, and both of us kind of believing in that as the foundation. And somatic, if you don't know what that means, it means you kind of work from the body. It's not the mind of just talking about your problems. Because as many of us know, and I know since many years of going to therapy and talking about my problems, it didn't do a thing for my anxiety, right?
There's no mind and body separate. Like everything it's connected, right? So I think everything needs to go together, like the body and the mind. And
yeah. So I would love to hear more about you, because I would love to share your story with our following. And just tell me a little bit about you before you got into this work or found this work for yourself. What was your life like? What were you doing? What was your career? Where were you in life before you had this transition to say, I'm feeling inspired to bring this to the public, to bring this to kids?
Yeah, so I'm from Brazil, and I've been in Canada for 12 years now. I am a biologist, so after my degree, my bachelor degree, I started my PhD in Brazil. I did one postdoc in Brazil, and then I immigrated to Canada, and I did another postdoc at McGill University, and I was 15 years in this career in university, and I was always anxious. I had a lot of anxiety. Insomnia, I couldn't sleep. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. She's 7 now. And I decided to transition to leave academia and like have more flexibility, because I would have with my daughter. And so I did a coaching course here in the university in Canada, in the Concordia University. And then I started studying a lot of stress management tools. So I study all the stress physiology and like what happens in our body, and mindfulness. And there's like a really great way also of seeing stress, of like changing your mindset about stress. So there's a whole course from Stanford University that's called Rethink Stress. So I studied that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I started creating workshops for nonprofits here in Montreal, and working in schools, with parents, with kids. And by accident, I found the audio from Deb Dana. It's one of the authors that work with the Polyvagal Theory. And it was called Befriending Your Nervous System. And I really connected to that. It's like, wow, what's that? I remember, like, as if it was yesterday, it's like 2-3 years ago. And I was listening to it on my kitchen, and I just I fell in love. Like, you know, when you fall in love with something, because it connected the physiology with the also mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So my biologist side really got excited about connecting everything, the body and really how the mind works. And then I went on a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I have to
the rabbit hole.
My pronunciation sometimes.
No, I know. Totally get it. I actually, it's funny that you said that about Deb Dana, because I had the same exact experience in my kitchen. So like, it's just funny. I was in my kitchen, had the audio on while I was cooking dinner one night, the same exact audio file. And I was like, this is where it's at. I have to look into this. And it sent me down an 8 or 9 year rabbit hole. And I'm still in the rabbit hole. Like now I'm teaching. It's like this is, it's crazy. So
and she has such a sweet voice, and I was like, it's like velvet, and I was like in love with the voice and the knowledge, and I started studying the Polyvagal Theory, and mainly practicing. So I started practicing, and I would see these amazing results of like awareness of where my nervous system was and how it was behaving according to different triggers. So then I started talking about it to adults and really using the scientific words and terms of it. And I would look at my daughter, that at the time she was 4, and I was like, I wish I knew that when I was young, you know, like I would not have so many years of insomnia and anxiety. And I had a lot of fear of public speaking. But like really, like I had a very intense physical reaction of shaking, and like my hands would be like sweating, like dripping, you know. And with all that, with the practicing, like my symptoms, like my body reactions really lowered, got really mild with just regulating my nervous system. And so here I would be very stressed. I'm a little bit, but I would be like overwhelmingly stressed and forgetting the words. But with the practice, I could lower my anxiety a lot. And I wish I knew that before. I wanted to share that with her. So then I came up with the idea of this book. So I wrote the book, So she doesn't speak any English, so I wrote in Portuguese. Here she speaks French and Portuguese. And I hired an illustrator, and it's just starting to get so cute. I loved it so much that I decided to translate to English and self-publish, because I was going to make just a gift for her, but I said, why don't I share that with the world and see what happens, right? So it's a real labor of love.
Yeah, can you show us the cover and
Yeah.
read us a little, can you show us a little page out of the book and how cute this is? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so he loves action. So we put a cape.
Oh yeah, it's like the I'm going to save the world superhero, sympathetic
And
superhero.
the dorsal vagal, I told the illustrators, like, needs to look like it's tired. So you see,
Yeah.
dorsal vagal, he has like some
Oh.
pockets under his eyes.
Oh, that's so cute. It looks like a little bean.
Yeah, it looks like a little bean. Yeah.
So can you just tell our audience who like is not familiar with the polyvagal theory, you just talked about sympathetic and ventral and dorsal, kind of like 1 or 2 or 3 words that kind of like relate to those, because they're probably like, what are these two talking about here? Can you give them a little overview?
I can give an overview. Just trying to think, like, being very succinct, if that's a word in English. You have to correct me. Sometimes I think in Portuguese, especially in the end of the day.
Oh, that's okay. If you start talking Portuguese, that's fine. Somebody will understand.
You just correct me. No, this doesn't make any sense.
It's okay. So if we go back to the polyvagal theory and we talk about what we just looked at in your book, and some of the audience out there is going to say, these are cute little characters, but what do they really mean, right? We don't know what they mean. So just for people that don't, aren't, would like to start their study of polyvagal theory, these are just 3 different states in your nervous system, and they're on a ladder. And just to keep it very simple, I actually go into this very deeply into my program, and so does Dani with her book, and kids can learn this very quickly. Once I started teaching my daughter about this, now she goes around to the whole family being like, okay, everybody, it's time to do a regulating exercise because everybody's in this state, and then once you start learning about it, you start knowing where you're at all the time, and then where other people are at. So it's
exactly.
kind of like, oh, that lady in the grocery store that's yelling at the deli counter. Okay, they're sympathetic. Okay, they're in that state of the nervous system.
I like the way that Dana she talks about that the polyvagal theory is the art and science of human connection.
Yes.
And like, because we are always also regulating each other. So
yes.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're in a room and you're coming in all happy and connected, and somebody comes in and you could kind of feel it, like you're in your state of calm and you're like, oh, I'm in chill mode. And when somebody comes in like all frantic and all upset about something, it kind of could affect you and affect your nervous system, right? So it's kind of like, it's helpful to be around regulation so that we can co-regulate and regulate together and come into presence. So very interesting.
I think to summarize is like what the polyvagal theory says is like understanding your nervous system. So understanding how your nervous system works and having a conversation, is learning the language of your nervous system, and that everything is connected. Right. So when you learn how to talk with your nervous system, you learn the different states. So what the polyvagal theory suggests is 3 states that by the observation from Dr. Porges. So by learning these 3 states, and they are completely normal. It's not, you said, look, we want to be on the top of the ladder most of the time. And what regulation means is that you can navigate these 3 states easily during the day and not be stuck anywhere.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So if you're stuck in sympathetic, when you were mentioning like action you need to do, and you feel anxiety and fear, or like you feel like everything's chaotic,
Yeah.
If you're stuck there for a long time, then when you become like, you start seeing issues and problems. And the same thing with the dorsal vagal. When you stay in shutdown, then you start seeing problems.
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of people who are highly sensitive, intuitive, and gifted had to develop that heightened state of awareness to disconnect from their environment early on to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see a lot of people with intuitive talent, it is because they had to be so hyper aware of their environment and scanning their environment at such a young age to know where to go, what to do, who's in this mood, who's in that mood, how to navigate to where, it does make our intuition naturally more, gifted, but it does automatically cause more of a disconnect also with the body. So while we in sympathetic can be very intuitive with the world around us and very in tune with other people and even psychic with other people, we still don't have that connection to ourselves because we're in that survival state.
Mm-hmm.
So moving back to you, what inspired you from that time in the kitchen where you went down the rabbit hole? How did you come from that place to realizing that this is something you wanted for your child and wanting to write a book about it? I mean, I find that fascinating that you had this journey. And how long did it take you from the time you heard that audio in your kitchen to going on your own journey and then writing this book for kids?
So I think it was 2 years ago, and I was going through a lot of stress, and I had a lot of triggers.
Yeah, right.
A lot of triggers, and I started to work with that. So I would observe my triggers and then see what happened to me, and see if I could, with that, like, be with the trigger, even like just regulating myself. And I felt a lot better, even being like in a triggering space. But in the end, I felt that I needed to also remove the trigger. So that we can, like, for example, if we're in a very stressful job, we can work with that and see if we can regulate our nervous system and see how we feel about it. But there are times that we need to deal with the trigger as well. Sometimes we cannot, sometimes we can. So that was my motivation, to really deal with the situation that I was living and see how I could deal with what's happening in my life. And I saw a lot of improvement in overall my well-being. And that's what, like, in the end, it was funny because I had this thought. I look at my daughter one day, I was like, oh, I really wish I came from a talk about it and with parents, and parents really took a lot from it. A lot of questions and a lot of engagement was really nice. And I remember I got home and I looked at her and I was like, and she was 4, and I was like, I really wish I could tell that to her, but I didn't know how. And I went for a shower, and then when the story came to me in the shower, and then I wrote down and I added after, like, the next day. And then I talked with my friend who is an illustrator, and we start working, and it took 2 years to be ready. It took a long time. Yeah.
It's just
it
interesting.
was a slow process because I was learning as well. I didn't know anything about book publishing, and the illustrator, it's my friend, she didn't know as well. So we were slowly navigating through that. And the first idea was just a book for her. Like, I wasn't thinking of publishing. So in the middle of it, then I changed the focus. So that's I think the next one would take less time, but yeah,
it's so interesting when I teach the intuitive part of everything in my courses, I talk about automatic tasks and how automatic tasks, when you do them and your brain is doing something else automatic, that's when these intuitive divine inspirations come in. And a lot of people are like, they're like, oh, for me, it's a shower. Like a lot of people have these divine channeled inspirations in the shower. And I'm like, yeah, well, water is the activator of your, intuitive energy, and then kind of creates that channel. So I'm not really surprised that you got that.
No, the book was ready. Like I wrote, it was ready. I just tweaked a little bit afterwards.
Oh my God, that's great. And so did you write the book after you already had been working with your daughter with polyvagal work, or did you write it and then teach it to her?
I wrote it as a tool to talk to her about it.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. And so did you, during those 2 years, talk to her about it, or was the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. After I wrote it, I started like using the story, even without the images, to talk to her about it, and started slowly like adding that to our vocabulary.
And how old was she at that point that you started to?
Like around 5. Yeah.
Wow.
I was teaching about the states. Because in the book I say that the ventral vagus is near your heart, and the parents, and at some point, like the parent, when I talk about co-regulation in the books, like it's like hugging. So and I think it's easier if I read it. So
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and let me see the part. So there's the first example, like I introduced the 3 states and what each state does. Like, for example, while ventrovagal loves to snuggle, sympathetic loves some action. Ventrovagals help me feel calm and relaxed, and sympathetic is always there for me when I need protection. So I introduce like the names, and then I introduce what each one does, right? So sympathetic's about action, and ventrovagals about helping you feel calm. So then I start the first example, and the first example that's very easy to think about is when a loud noise. So something breaks and there's a loud noise. You usually turn to where the noise comes from, then this is physiological, and the startle is sympathetic, right? Because then you're ready to see what's this noise about. So I write that this morning when mommy dropped a plate, it startled me and I thought it was a monster. Ventrovagus found somewhere safe to hide. This is when sympathetic came to the rescue. And I use pronouns they, them. So they got my breathing and heartbeat to work harder. This sent a lot of energy to my legs and I jumped. As soon as this happened, mommy was there to give me a hug. Did you know that she also has a friend named Vegas? When we hug, her ventral vagus and mine are happy to cuddle, and I feel safe.
Oh,
so this
it's
idea,
so cute.
You like it?
Oh my God, I love it. It's so cute.
So this idea that I have a ventral vagus and my ventral vagus is near my heart, and so we were like playing with that. So can my ventral vagus talk to yours? So we were playing with that a lot. She didn't want to do the breathing. So she likes to do her things the way she does. She wants.
Yeah.
So she wasn't, I was introducing, I was like, oh, let's do a deep breath. And she was like, I was like, no, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I was introducing. But then when there was some episodes, like later, not when she was 5, but a little later, that she felt anxious about something. That was when she asked me about it. And she really like, oh, I want to do how you said in the book. So then we started working more with the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a meditation with her, like the whole body, a meditation that a light comes through the vagus nerve. So I play with that. That's not something that I share on the book, something that I made up, that I do with her. So yeah, it's more the breathing and the co-regulation that I introduced with her.
Yeah, it's awesome that you kind of allowed her to process this and come to a place where she felt she wanted to integrate the work more.
Yes.
And say, like, I know that there's a solution to this. I know that from reading this book when I was 5, that my gear is getting stuck here. I'm getting stuck in a state. And when you do experience that, and even as an adult, I mean, I didn't even know this was going on until I started to listen to Deb Dana. Really, I thought this was just my life.
Yes.
And when you find that you're stuck in a state like that, where like you're just ruminating, or the thoughts are racing, or your heart, and the anxiety, you really don't feel like you have control of yourself. Like you really feel like you have to control other people, your environment, things around you. And then when you learn the gears and you learn how to shift them, and you learn that, like, oh, I can stay here at the control board and actually shift the gears and be and Deb Dana calls it the active operator of your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
It is when I realized that I had the power to do that, it all shifted inside. And I said, very empowering. It's like, oh my God. I remember when I was probably 20, 21 years old, and there was a situation in my life where I felt a loss. Like I felt like I had to grieve a loss. And I remember being in a ball for like 8 months, experiencing something that I felt like just took over my body and I couldn't get out of, like just this adrenaline going through my body and feeling like cortisol, and just like these, it felt like there was a storm like going on in my body, and it was just constant, and I just couldn't stop it. And it just felt like if somebody could just like give me a tool to get out of this, like, but I didn't know that then. It was just kind of like, I just had to ride it. But it was, I remember how awful that felt. And, we are, like, you're right. We go about in our life and we're supposed to be able to move through these different states with ease and resilience. And we're supposed to rest and digest. We're supposed to lay down and nap. We're supposed to be able to mobilize to go to work and to even do this interview. We have to be, there has to be a little bit of energy.
Yes.
But then I think a lot of people have a misconception that we're in that state of calm and connection, that we can't grieve in that state or be angry in that state or do things in that state. And we can do things in ventral. And that's where
the blended states.
Yeah. It's just, if we're in dorsal, we feel like we can't and we're hopeless. But in ventral, we could have challenges come up, feel like we're capable, and we can move through it. We can do it. We're not stuck in like the self-sabotage or shut down or that hopeless state of wanting to shut the world out because we just can't handle the stimulation that's going on in our system. And to have that as an adult, most of my life I didn't, to have that as an adult, as somebody who's highly intuitive, who does this as a job, and who is highly sensitive. I didn't realize this was what I was seeking. I thought it was something, it had to be something external. It had to be the right job. It had to be the right house, the right place that you're living, the right relationship, the right amount of financial abundance, the right manifestation. And I've gotten to all those places on some level. And then when you get there and you're like, oh no, crap, this isn't it. It must be something else. And then you go along the board game and you pick up all the cards and you get to all the places in Candyland. And then when you're at the end of the board and be like, what now? Because none of these things worked long term. None of this isn't it. I thought I would have arrived. but instead I'm still feeling this way. There's something missing. Don't know what it is. And this is, for me, I'm not saying that everyone in the world is at this place. For a highly sensitive, intuitive person who's experienced a lot of things in my life, a lot of, I call them emotional or energetic breaches or energetic breaks rather than trauma, because a lot of people think trauma has to be some big thing, and it could just be like energetic breaks and breaches throughout your life. And when you're sensitive to energy, it affects our muscle memory, it affects our systems and our bodies and our mind, our emotions, and especially our psychic ability and spiritual connection. So yeah, when I found this, it was like, okay, I think maybe I can come home to the real home within myself. And this isn't like, I know you've probably experienced this, or maybe, I don't want to speak for you, but this is a journey. This isn't something that like you do one time, you do a breathing exercise, you're good for life. I mean, you're opening up to connection and vulnerability, which before was unsafe to do. So that opening is small. It takes some time to really expand that opening.
Yeah,
and it takes mentorship and stuff. I know I needed a team to take me through that process. So
it's a lot. And the first thing you need to do, it's not even the exercise, like mapping. It's like getting to know yourself, getting to know your nervous system. You're getting to know like what it can be, like increased heart rate, or you start get sweaty, or the first thing you notice is being irritated or like annoyed. So really learning to pick up these things quickly. So that means to be regulated. Like if you pick up quickly, you know what to do to change the state quickly.
Yeah. And you're talking about the mapping. It's kind of what you're saying is knowing the states, but then being able to spot where you are on that ladder.
Exactly.
And being able to like take your temperature and be like, okay, am I revved up right now, or am I feeling connected and open, or am I feeling really shut down? And it does help to kind of spot yourself like throughout different times of the day and know where you're at. It's very helpful. And for kids, I would imagine they go to school, they have to take a test, or they have to speak in front of their class, or they have to do a presentation, or they have to go and do something, sports wise. They have a competition, or they have, something where they have to audition for a school play. These are things that sometimes a child, it might send them straight down to shut down and say, this is too scary. I don't even think I can do this. Or usually it goes into shutdown after they get so anxious about it. The body can't handle it and it goes to shutdown.
Yeah.
But if we can say that activation's normal, you're going to be feeling that, let's do something to help you be a little more comfortable getting up and going to that audition. And there are tools that we can have, that I have my daughter use to say, okay, like, I'd like to be able to have you step into this knowing that you're going to be uncomfortable, but knowing that we can do a couple things to help you not have so much discomfort, and then feeling you can kind of step into that situation slowly. And, Deb Dana talks about the book ending, where you do the resource before, and then afterward, you do another regulating tool, so that next time you do that, your body remembers feeling a little bit calmer before and a little bit calmer after. So it really, really does help. Yeah. So how does your daughter, has she been using this now in her life, like regularly, or does she like sometimes like spot you and say, Mom, you're in sympathetic, or you're in dorsal? Does she ever like say to you, you need to go regulate?
No, okay. Not yet. I think like going back with kids that are younger, I'll tell about my daughter, but just something came up when you were speaking.
Yeah.
That maybe it's interesting to share. Like when kids like are young and don't have the vocabulary, they can come home and say, "Oh, my tummy hurts," and
Yeah.
that could be a sign of stress, because when you're in sympathetic, often what happened with your body is getting all the energy that can get to make you ready to fight or flight. So all the energy is in the muscles. So everything that's long term in the body or that uses a lot of energy stops. So the first thing that will stop is digestion, because digestion uses 20% of our energy every day. So that's one of the first things that will stop in sympathetic. So when kids don't have the vocabulary, I'm anxious and I'm worried, and they say that their tummy hurts. So probably that's that it's a hint. And then helping them take deep breaths and regulating yourself so you can help co-regulate. Because when you are anxious, their nervous system will pick up that with neuroception. So really, if you could regulate yourself, then that's already like a big step.
Yeah, definitely a step in the right direction, because if we become more anxious and more frustrated when our kids are acting out, or, actually it's like we could talk about this kids, but also I brought this work into my whole family. Like even, my parents and, like the older generation who would just, my family grew up in the coal mines, like, like mining, like, so like that generation is like constantly work, do. We got to produce, we got to go, we got to struggle, we got to, go.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom telling me, like, one day, I haven't slept in like a month, and I wake up at 3:00 in the morning and I have to go, go to the kitchen and eat to be able to fall asleep. And I was like, just try this. I know you're not going to listen to me on doing any long-term stuff, but just go lay down and do this exercise for 30 seconds, on one side, 30 seconds. And she called me up the next day. She said, "Oh my God, I slept like a baby. I slept a full 8 hours." I said, "Just do that every night." And, it's just amazing how what I thought I was getting for myself and doing for myself, it kind of, it's like a ripple effect, like in a lake. You throw and it really does extend to your whole family, because they see that there's a change. Yeah. Just wait to the point where she's in her calm and regulated state and you're not. And she tries to, be like, "You need to regulate," because I get that a lot.
Tell you.
I'm like, "No, I don't." Like, "Yes, you do."
And you get defensive, right? It's like,
I do.
I'm not.
I'm not. What do you mean? I'm fine. You need to go do an exercise. Oh, no, I don't. And it's funny because when you are stuck in that state, and like, intuitively, like, I really, it would benefit me to do this, but for some reason that rebellious nature comes in and you're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the regulation. And so it's kind of like, now it's, she's very outgoing, so she has no problem, like, "Mommy, I think you need to do this exercise right now." And she's usually right, that I do.
That's the most annoying part, when they are right. Most of the time they are right.
But you know what? There's times where, kids, they, they're kind of, they have a day, they have a mood, they have a moment. And there's times I do really well. And if I'm also having a moment at the time, sometimes it's challenging to bring that calm and regulation where you're both kind of triggering each other. And I'm so proud, because she's like, "I don't want to talk to you," whatever, and just leave, and then comes back, "Mommy, I just went and did a regulating resource." And I'm like, wow, like, this is something she went and did on her own without me having to say, like, remember what we talked about? Like, I don't have to, like, how I'm so proud. I'm so proud that, like, wow, like problem solving, like going and taking care of yourself and your nervous system. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Here I am thinking she's off, like, stomping away on a tantrum, and she's up there regulating. Like, I wish that I could do as great of a job as you.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, tell us where we could find your book, because I'm sure a lot of parents watching and people watching would love to get their hands on your book. So what's the best way to connect with you? Is there a social media channel that's the best way to follow you, or just go to a link? And we'll put that in the description of the video too, where people could go. What's the best way to get the book if somebody would like to get a copy?
Yeah, so the best way, it's like on Amazon. So it's you can find it on Amazon. My Instagram is really slow, but that's where I usually post more stuff. So
we will link it to the description of the video. And that's
my friend Vega's Instagram. Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy you came on the show today, Dani. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm very excited, and I feel very grateful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys next week, next Sunday. We'll see you again very soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I will put the music on and take us out.